June 2008, Bear Mountain, New York. A white SUV sits abandoned on a bridge overlooking the Hudson River. The driver's door is wide open. On the dusty hood, someone has scrawled a chilling message: "Suicide is painless." Inside, police find a wallet and prescription bottles belonging to Samuel Israel III, a disgraced hedge fund manager who was supposed to report to federal prison that morning to begin a 20-year sentence for defrauding investors out of $300 million. But Sam Israel had one more con left in him, faking his own death and disappearing. What happened next was a bizarre manhunt involving America's most wanted, a girlfriend turned accomplice, and a desperate man who believed he could outsmart the FBI one last time. How did a privileged kid from a wealthy trading family become one of Wall Street's biggest frauds? How did he think scrawling a movie quote on his car would fool investigators? And what made him believe he could survive on the run? This is the story of Sam Israel's fake death and his desperate attempt to escape justice.
After nearly a month on the run, an American businessman who was convicted of stealing millions from investors has turned himself in. Samuel Israel III walked into this police station and told authorities he was the man they had been looking for.
Samuel Israel III was born into privilege in 1959. His family were successful commodities traders in New York, the kind of people who summered in the Hamptons and sent their kids to elite private schools. Sam attended Hackley School, one of the most prestigious schools in the area. He had every advantage: money, connections, and a famous last name in the trading world. But Sam had a problem. Despite all his advantages, he never quite measured up. He attended Tulane University, but never finished his degree. While his family made fortunes in legitimate trading, Sam struggled to find his footing. He bounced around various jobs in the financial world during the 1980s and early 1990s, never quite breaking through. By his mid-30s, Sam was desperate to prove himself. In 1996, Sam saw his opportunity. The hedge fund industry was exploding. He founded the Bayou Hedge Fund group with a pitch that sounded impressive: advanced computer algorithms and trading strategies to generate consistent profits with limited risk. He recruited Daniel Marino, a certified public accountant, to handle the books. The pitch worked. Bayou attracted serious money from pension funds, wealthy individuals, and family offices. Within a few years, Sam claimed to be managing hundreds of millions of dollars. He then moved into a sprawling estate, drove luxury cars, and lived the life of a successful hedge fund mogul. Finally, Sam Israel had the success he craved. There was just one problem: it was all fake. Here's the dirty secret about Bayou. The fund lost money almost from the very beginning. His trading strategies didn't work. In 1998, just 2 years after launching, Bayou suffered significant losses. A legitimate hedge fund manager would have disclosed these losses to investors. Sam chose a different path. He decided to lie. The two of them began fabricating the fund's returns. When investors received their quarterly statements showing steady gains, those numbers were completely invented. The fund wasn't making money, it was hemorrhaging it. But Sam couldn't admit failure. He had built his entire identity around being a successful hedge fund manager. To make the fraud more convincing, Sam and Marina created a fake accounting firm called Richmond Fairfield Associates. The firm existed only on paper. They printed official-looking letterhead and order reports that certified Bayou's financial statements. But behind all this was Marino himself, using a fake name. Investors who asked for audited financials received documents that looked completely legitimate. By the early 2000s, Bayou had raised over $450 million from investors. The fund had essentially stopped trading. Sam and Marino weren't running a hedge fund anymore. They were running a Ponzi scheme, using the money from new investors to pay fake returns to existing investors and to fund their lavish lifestyles. Sam paid himself millions in incentive fees based on the profits that didn't exist. By 2005, the scheme was collapsing. Investors were asking harder questions. Some wanted to withdraw significant amounts, and Sam was struggling to find the cash. In September 2005, something bizarre happened. Dan Marino apparently attempted suicide and left behind a detailed confession note. The note laid out the entire fraud, the fake returns, the fake accounting firm, the misappropriation of funds. Marino didn't actually die. Authorities reached him at home within hours. Whether his suicide attempt was genuine or staged remains unclear, but the damage was done. The confession letter was now in the hands of the FBI. Sam and Marino were arrested within days. Federal prosecutors charged both men with conspiracy, mail fraud, wire fraud, and investor advisor fraud. In 2005, both Sam and Marino pleaded guilty. They faced decades in prison and orders to forfeit $300 million. For Sam, it was the ultimate humiliation. The golden boy from the wealthy trading family was exposed as a fraud. His reputation was destroyed, his money was gone, and prison loomed. But he had one more trick up his sleeves. The sentencing hearing took place in April 2008. Sam stood before Judge Colleen McMahon and heard his fate, 20 years in federal prison. At 48 years old, Sam would spend the rest of his productive life behind bars. He was ordered to report to federal prison in Massachusetts on June 9, 2008. He had about 6 weeks to get his affairs in order before surrendering. For most convicted criminals, this would be the time to say goodbye to family. Sam had a different idea. He was going to disappear. Sam had been dating a woman named Deborah Ryan, a former girlfriend who had stood by him through the trial. Together, they hatched a plan. Sam would fake his suicide, making it look like he had jumped from a bridge into the Hudson River. While authorities searched for his body, he would go into hiding. Eventually, he would slip out the country. The plan was absurd. Sam's case was high profile. He had no legitimate means of leaving the country. His passport was flagged, and Sam had never demonstrated any ability to live off the grid. But Sam was desperate and convinced himself it could work. After all, he had fooled investors for nearly a decade. Surely, he could fool the authorities long enough to escape. June 9, 2008. The morning Sam was supposed to report to prison. His white GMC Envoy was found abandoned on the Bear Mountain Bridge. The driver's door was open. Sam's wallet, prescription medication, and personal items were inside. And on the dusty hood, a message: "Suicide is painless." But federal investigators weren't buying it. Everything about the scene felt staged. There was no suicide note, just a cryptic message. No witnesses saw anyone jump, and Sam had cleaned out his bank accounts and storage units in the days before. This wasn't the behavior of someone planning to end their life. This was someone planning to run. Within 24 hours, federal authorities issued a bench warrant for Sam's arrest, announcing publicly that they believed he had faked his suicide. The FBI began an intensive manhunt. Sam's photograph was distributed nationwide. His girlfriend Deborah Ryan was immediately placed under surveillance. Sam had vanished, but he hadn't planned well for life on the run. He had some cash, but not enough to survive indefinitely. He had no fake identity documents, no offshore accounts he could safely access. He was just a 48-year-old man with health problems, expensive tastes, and no experience living as a fugitive. His case was featured on America's Most Wanted, a television show that helped capture fugitives. Viewers across the country all saw his face. Tips poured in, though most led nowhere. Sam was staying in cheap motels and RV parks, moving frequently, relying on Deborah Ryan to bring him supplies and money. Ryan became the key to finding Sam. Federal agents had been following her from the beginning. They watched her make trips to a location in Massachusetts and then return. They tracked her phone calls and financial transactions. Ryan was not a sophisticated criminal. She left a trail everywhere she went. On June 24, 2008, just 2 weeks after Sam staged suicide, federal agents arrested Deborah Ryan. She was charged with conspiracy and aiding a fugitive. The message to Sam was clear. His support network was gone, and the net was tightening. Sam was alone now, hiding in an RV park in western Massachusetts, with no money, no plan, and no options. The manhunt was national news. His face was everywhere. He couldn't access his bank accounts without being traced. After 3 weeks on the run, living in a squalor and eating cheap food, Sam finally accepted reality. The fantasy was over. On July 2nd, 2008, Sam Israel surrendered to the FBI. He didn't go out in some dramatic confrontation. He simply contacted his lawyer and arranged to turn himself in. He looked haggard, defeated, and nothing like the confident hedge fund manager who had once commanded hundreds of millions of dollars. He was immediately taken into custody and transported to federal court. Judge Colleen McMahon was not amused. Sam had wasted government resources, manipulated his girlfriend into committing crimes, and shown complete contempt for the justice system. In March 2009, Sam was sentenced to an additional 2 years in prison, on top of his original 20-year sentence. And Deborah Ryan was sentenced to 6 months in prison for helping him. The question that haunted victims was simple. Where did all the money go? Bayou raised over $450 million. The total loss was approximately $300 million. Some money went to Sam's lavish lifestyle. Some were lost in bad trades. But much of it simply disappeared into the black hole of the Ponzi scheme, used to pay fake returns and cover tracks. To this day, suicide is painless remains associated with Sam Israel's failed escape attempt. The darkly ironic message he scrawled on that car hood became the perfect encapsulation of his entire story. A man who thought he could cheat his way out of consequences, only to discover that running from the law is anything but painless.